Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome dear learners, I am Dr. Manisha Goswami working at Institute of Business Management, GLA University, Mathura. Today we are going to start with lecture number 4 on organizational analysis and comparative advantage of the corporate strategic management. Let's have a quick recap before we begin with our today's lecture. In our previous lecture, we had discussed the concept of strategy. Second, we had talked about the corporate governance, and immediately before to this lecture, we talk about the environment scanning and industry analysis, wherein we got to know that analysis of the external environment, macro and micro, pestle analysis, and as well as the analysis of the industry, like with the help of 5 forces water model, is utmost important to list out the opportunities and threats for the company. The moment organization get a fair understanding about the opportunities and the threats, they have a fair understanding about the favorable conditions and unfavorable conditions. And once you got to know these are my unfavorable conditions, you can take corrective course of actions to overcome those unfavorable conditions, or you try to mitigate the risk which can impose by the threats upon your organization. So now, dear students, let's move to the today's lecture learning objective. The first lecture will be focusing upon analyzing the internal strength using resource-based view framework. Second, you will be able to understand the role of business model in market positioning. You will be able to understand how to examine the impact of organization structure, culture on performance. Fourth, you will be able to understand how strategic auditing take place on a continuous basis and how it is really going to leverage the importance to the or improvement to the organization. Finally, you will be able to understand by the end of this lecture that leveraging comparative intelligence and forecasting for the future growth. So these are the 5 essential learning outcomes of this lecture, and I am hoping that you will be able to gain the insights on it after completing it. So now let's start with the first understanding that what is organizational analysis. Organizational analysis is about understanding the internal environment. So understanding of internal environment is actually doing what? Organizational analysis. And there are certain parameters which help in doing the internal environment analysis, that is your resource, structure of your company, and the culture of your company. Resources are going to be understood with the help of VRIO model. We will be discussing in the upcoming lecture. And then the hierarchy of the organization is going to make us understand what kind of the structure is prevailing in the organization. The vision, mission, core values are going to give a clear understanding about the culture of the organization. So after understanding the resource, structure, culture, you will get the list of what? Strength and weaknesses. What strengths are? Strengths are the inherent capacity of the organization, wherein weaknesses are inherent incapability of the organization. What in particular organization will always strive hard to do? For sure, will try to maximize the strength and will try to minimize or overcome the weaknesses. If in a particular organization weaknesses are more, then what is going to happen? The survival is going to be at stake. They won't be able to survive. They won't be able to sustain in the market if your weaknesses are very high. Then next comes why it is crucial for the comparative advantage. Organization analysis is crucial for the comparative advantage because it helps in understanding about the strength and weaknesses. You have a fair list of my strength and weaknesses, and based on this you can do what? SWOT analysis. right? If I have a particular strength which match with this opportunity, so I am going to set the permutation combination of this strength and opportunity, and this will help me to combat the weaknesses and the threats. Say for example, a particular strength is matching with is not matching with any of the opportunity. That means my threats are more in the market, and as a result I may not be able to survive and sustain. So the SWOT analysis is possible, and that is the reason why organization analysis is very important to be performed. Now, key topics which are going to be covered in this particular lecture is resource based view, business model, value chain, strategic audit, and comparative intelligence are going to be explored in the upcoming slide. Let's focus. And before we start with this, let us have a quick poll. Which factor do you think contribute most to the organization comparative advantage? Resource and capabilities, business model innovation, market positioning, organizational culture. Now let's start with the resource-based view of comparative advantage. The first is the framework of BRIO. This framework came into being in the year 1991. Who has propounded? J.B. Barney. Introduced this model, but in this particular year it was known as VRIN model. VRIN model, V stands for valuable, R stands for rare, I stands for imitable, and O stands for organized. And this was the correction which took place in the year 95, in the book which he launched in the year 95. And at this point of time in the year 1991, N stands for non-substitutable products. These the products which could not be substituted are going to come under the N. So earlier, what was the view of the Barney? Barney tried to find out the 4 set of questions, and he really was looking to find whether these questions are serving the strength of the organization or weakness of the organization. So they are going to ask certain set of questions to the organization, whether the resources which organization is holding, is it valuable enough or not. If resources are valuable, then this becomes your strength, and if it is not, then it becomes your weakness. Say for example, the material which you are making use of, is it adding any value to your organization? Is it rare? If the answer is no, that means it is your weakness. If it could be easily copied, imitable, the product which you are producing in the market can be easily copied. If the answer is yes, it can be copied, that means it is again your weakness. It is imitable. The thing which could be imitated, the thing which can be copied is the weakness of the company, because any XYZ company can copy your product and can launch in the market, and this will reduce your competitive position. So if in order to hold on with your competitive position, you need to come up with the product which cannot be easily copied. So here, if it is imitable, answer is yes, then it is your weakness. And the next question, are we organized enough to exploit all the resources? If the answer is yes, then it is your strength. If the answer is yes, then it is the strength of the organization. And in most of the research article, it is observed there are some organizations who are not holding any of the above, like they are not having a product which is valuable, they are not having a rare raw material, their product is also easy to copy, but they are very much focused and they are very inclined towards the exploitation of available, no matter how limited resources are, they are very much focused towards that exploitation of the resources. Then despite of insufficiency in holding the valuable, rareness and imitable, their strengths are high as compared to their weaknesses, because they are organized. No matter you don't have valuable product, no matter you don't have rare product, no matter your product is imitable, despite of that, you being organized, you can take away the market into different direction. So this is what the VRIO framework is all about. You try to list out the strength and weakness by asking 4 set of important questions to your organization, and this is going to be performed in terms of understanding the internal environment resources, and this is how you are understanding the resource based view, whether the resources which you are holding, is it valuable to hold, is it worth to hold, or you have to take a call in terms of diluting it, or in terms of getting rid of those resources which you are having. You should put them on scrap, or you should really invest further to get more advantage of those resources which you are having in the organization. So once you are done with this VRIO framework, you are clearly having a list of strength and weakness of your organization, and the moment you got to know that if these two are my weakness, that how I can get rid of these weaknesses, how I can minimize these weaknesses, how I can overcome them. This is going to be your prime focus. Now next is the understanding of VRIO component with the help of Reliance Jio case. Now under this particular case, what we observe that when it comes to the valuable disrupted telecom industry with cheap data plan and 4G services, this is the kind of the value he was trying to provide to the customer, that I need to really come up with a evolution in the telecom sector, in the telecom industry, with cheap data plans and the 4G services. Then Rare had the first mover advantage in India with affordable unlimited internet services. They become the first company in the world to come up with this free data services consecutive for 6 months. So this has become a rare thing. Every next person cannot afford to offer free data services, not for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, but for 6 months. Imitability, the competitors are really struggling till date. They are still not able to imitate because the technology in which he has invested, the infrastructure which he has created is so vast, is so humongous, that it is not so easy for everyone to invest in that. It is the costliest investment he has made, and the technology, existing technology of the Airtel Vodafone become obsolete over the night just after the launch of the Reliance Jio in the country. So competitors struggle to match the pricing due to high infrastructural cost. So that means your product become inimitable also. So this become your strength, rarity also become your strength, even imitability is also not there, that's why it becomes your strength. And Reliance had a financial operational capability to sustain geo expansion, so that means they are fully robust and they are totally organized in order to exploit this opportunity what they are having. So all these 4 set of different strength has made them a successful company or a successful launch of a Reliance Jio in our country. Though on the ground reality they face certain trouble, they face the network issue, those were the ground issues, but on the paper, on the contrary side, if we say the kind of the strategy or the kind of a mindset the owner of a company was having behind the launch of Reliance Jio was full strategic proof. Now let's try to understand another model, that is a value chain analysis. After understanding the resource based view, now let us focus on the value chain analysis, how the different set or the components of your company can contribute to the strength and weaknesses, right? So there could be 2 set of the activities. One is the primary activity, another one is the supporting activity. So under the Porter's value chain model, you try to see how different primary activities are going to contribute for increasing the profit margins of the company, how different supporting activities are contributing in increasing the profit margins of the company. So when it comes to the inbound logistics is a place where you try to procure the data, or you try to procure the resources, maybe the raw material for your organization. But for inbound logistics, do you really think the procurement department can work in isolation? Answer is no. That means they have to have a good coordination of primary activities and the supporting activities together. They should gel well with each other, because none of the department of the primary activities and the supporting activity can work in isolation. They have to contact each other, they have to coordinate with each other within the department and between the department also. Like in this case, when we start with the inbound logistics, that means the procurement of the raw material, so they need to take the permission from the firm infrastructure, that are you financially capable to allow me to place this much of raw material order to the supplier. If answer come yes from the side of the firm infrastructure, then the procurement department is going to get the signal that yes, you can go for the purchasing of the raw material. And then once they give the order to the supplier, the inbound logistic is going to be informed that start stacking or start putting the raw material into your inventory house. And the moment product comes to your inventory house, you are going to inform the operation department, or you are going to keep this raw material in your inventory house without letting anybody know. Then it is going to reduce the possibility of right usage of the raw material which you have purchased. This is going to increase the cost involved in the production. So the moment you are going to hold on with the moment you get the right over the raw material in your inventory house, you are immediately going to inform the operation department that we are ready with the raw material, and you are going to pass it on to the operation department, and the operation department is going to process the raw material, is going to start processing the raw material. Process of the raw material is going to take place. And do you really think they can do it themselves? Answer is no. They need machine. What they need for processing? They need machine. They need manpower. And do you think they can get them alone? No. Again, the firm infrastructure has to be brought into the prime focus. You have to consult with the firm infrastructure that can we do this, and do we need a machinery. So procurement department is going to ensure the right machinery is there with the operation department, right manpower is going to be ensured by the human resource department. So all these three departments are going to play the role to make these two departments functional. Right. And don't you think the technology is also going to play the role? The advancement in technology, the data about the customer taste and preferences, the data about your competitors move, the data about the strategic moves, or the different disruption which is taking place at the level of the technological advancement, isn't going to pave the way for the people to really take the correct decision in terms of whether to continue with the old style of product, or some alteration or some changes are needed in the existing product. So all these four different departments are really going to pave the way that how inbound logistics and operations are going to perform. Once the production is done, finished good is ready, and you have to pass it on to the outbound logistic. Their job is to transfer the product to the required segment, right, the area where it is going to be demanded. So you are going to pass it on to the retailer or the wholesaler, and the marketing department should be well aware before actual lending of the product to the retail outlet that the product is very much ready. And you as operation department has to inform the marketing and sales department that our product is going to get ready very soon. The outbound logistics is going to ship the consignment to the retailer or the wholesaler. You should start aggressive marketing and the selling strategies, and they will start doing so. And then if there is a need of a after sale service, if it's a consumer durable product and after sale services are needed, then once the product reach to the retail outlets, the after sale service requirement will also increases. If all these different departments are in close alignment, they are gelling well with each other, they are communicating with each other, they are coordinating with each other, there will be the less possibility of what? Flaws in the system. And if there will be less flaws in the system, the profit margins for sure are going to be higher. And if these people are not communicating with each other, they are not interacting with each other, what is going to be the problem? There will be a possibility of gaps in the market. Say for example, operation department is ready with the finished good, and they are not informing the marketing department that goods are ready, you should start your marketing promotion strategies. It is unnecessary going to delay the process of marketing, it is unnecessary going to delay the process of selling strategies. And at the same point of time, when product is ready at the retail outlet and the service people are not aware the product has reached to the customer, you have to begin with your after sales services, maybe some free installation, or maybe some freebies to be provided, or maybe some guarantee warranty to be attached to this, and you have not informed, they will not get activated, and this will lead to the gap in the market, and this will create a huge sort of a mishandling of the customer base, and that what leads to the deterioration of the image of a company. So with this, we understood that primary activities and the supporting activities are supposed to coordinate and communicate with each other in order to increase the profit margin. None of the department, either on the supporting side or the primary side, can work in isolation. They have to work in close coordination. They should provide the required information well in advance to all these departments who are going to get affected by their decisions. Next, let's try to understand the value chain analysis based on the Zomato case study. So, as we have seen, the inbound logistics, operation, outbound, marketing, sales and services, these different departments, let us try to see all these different departments in case of the Zomato strategy. Now, inbound logistics. So, for increasing the inbound logistics in case of a Zomato, because it is like a cloud kitchen, they are not manufacturing any stuff, they are just helping the customer to get the required dishes or the cuisine at their table by connecting them with the restaurant. So, inbound logistic is partnering with thousands of the restaurant companies. The restaurant people are having a chef, they have a complete setup and they are producing different cuisines, and they are placing all those cuisines, or the menu of a restaurant are flashing on the Zomato app. Operation: AI driven app for personalized recommendations, right? So, if you are constant buyer of suppose maybe some sweets, then after a point of time the app may send a message to you that it's been so long you haven't purchased any sweets from us, are you not having a craving for eating a sweets? So, such kind of AI driven personalized recommendations are coming from the side of a Zomato in order to create an impulse among the customer, because in such a busy time, a scenario, the people are not even able to get the time to think what they ate yesterday. So, such kind of AI driven app on personalized recommendation really triggers the brain of the customer, and they started thinking, oh, let me also buy the sweets again. Another is the outbound logistic, like fast food delivery via Zomato rider. So, once your order is there and you are going to have a very efficient riders, Zomato riders or the bikers should be needed, and so you need to hire them. And who are working for hiring them? The HR managements are hiring the delivery executives and the tech teams, and the delivery executives are those people who will be helping in delivering the Zomato, and they are known as the Zomato riders, and the tech team are working on AI driven app. So, these two things are taken care by the HR management by hiring the quality people for the Zomato. Next is your marketing and sales. Heavy digital promotions and influencer collaborations are there, which are helping Zomato to take a lead or the charge. Next is your service, customer support and the refund policy is there. If you are not able to get the order as per your taste and preferences, or you might have received some rotten food or the food quality is not at par, then you can put your complaint on the website, and it's a very easy way to really navigate to the customer care services, and you will get the refund if the concern is the genuine. The next is your infrastructure, the strong technology driven platform they have created, which is very robust and very useful and user friendly also. It is not very complicated. Every next person can use it very efficiently. The next is your technology. HR management is already discussed. The technology is the fast changing era, where in this fast changing technology, you need to keep yourself upgraded with AI based pricing and order tracking, and you need to keep on upgrading your technology with the advancement of technology, because Zomato soul lies in the technology. And if they are not changing with the change in technology, because every change in technology make your app more user friendly, so your soul lies in technology. If you are upgrading yourself with the advancement in technology, that means you are making your application more user friendly, and if your application is more user friendly, possibility of getting orders via your app will be higher. Procurement. commission based revenue from the restaurant. So you are not the one who is manufacturing the cuisines or the dishes. You have to rely on the different restaurant. So restaurant people are going to give you the commission of delivering their product to the final customer. So that's how the Zomato is earning. I'm sure with the help of this example, the value chain analysis model is now clear to most of you. Now let us move to the next poll, that which Indian company has the strongest business model? Flipkart, Infosys, Patanjali, Byju's. I'm sure you have the answer of it. Now let's start with the next topic, that is the different types of the organizational structure. So as I told you earlier, that organizational analysis comprises of three parameters. One is the resource. So by these two different models, VRIO model and value chain analysis model, we try to understand the resource based view. Now we are heading towards the next important aspect, that is the structure, which is another important element to analyze the organization. So you have to see what kind of the structure, what kind of hierarchy is prevailing in the organization, because your hierarchy defines the reporting system. Who is commanding whom, and is there a uniformity of command, or there are a lot of people who are having a power to command over other people. If multiple people are giving a command or order to other people, there is a possibility, high possibility, that there will be no execution. There will be an execution failure. So you as an organization have to understand that in your organization, hierarchy system should be very clear and orders should flow from one side only. Every next person should not have a commanding authority, and the people who are having a commanding authority should be the sole commander. They should not be having a multiple commanding people within the same channel. So the different type of structure, I'm sure you people have gone through in your business organization chapters, like hierarchy structure, functional structure, matrix structure, team based structure, network structure, divisional structure, horizontal flat structure. So these are the different types of structure based on the organization type, based on the kind of work you are into. If you are into organization where relationship building is very important, you should go for the network structure. If in your organization there is a possibility that organization is having a variety of product lines, like then you should go for the division structure. Say for example, a pharmaceutical company could have a different divisions. They could have a division for cardiovascular disease, they should have a division for nephrology disease, they should have a division for neurological diseases. So these three different areas, like suppose the cardiovascular diseases, so these cardiovascular disease or the division is going to produce the medicines, or maybe doing the research in order to find out how to cure the cardiovascular problems. Similarly, the other different units will be doing the study in this similar area. So based on the division. Another, if your organization is working on the basis of the project, then you can have a matrix structure wherein under every project you will be having an expert or the specialized person working therein. Now next, try to understand the organization culture. Organization culture encompasses the shared values, belief, attitude, practice that characterize an organization. Organization culture is actually a depiction of what the founder of the organization thinks about their own organization. What is his perspective before taking a call of starting with this organization. So organization culture encompasses the shared values, belief, attitude and practice that characterize an organization. It shapes employee behavior, influence the decision making and affect the overall performances. A strong culture aligned with the organizational goal and can enhance employee engagement and satisfaction. So if your organization culture is very strong, very robust, and you are not diluting or compromising the culture or value of the organization, then this is going to create a very positive environment among the organization, and people feel like working in your organization, and it is going to create a huge employer branding, and people will get attracted towards your organization. So key elements of organization culture like value system. So every organization founder, CEO or the top management or the board members should have the core principle that guide behavior and decision making, not only of them but rest of the people working in the organization, and that should reflect in the policies of the organization like HR policy, finance policy, logistic policies. All these policies should be the reflection of the core value system of the top management. There should be the norms, but these norms are not going to be so explicitly mentioned on the walls of the organization. These are the unwritten rules and expectation for employee conduct. There are certain things which are assumed that employee understand and will perform accordingly, and this is also known as a psychological contract. Symbols like the logo, slogan, artifacts that represent the organization identity. It's also a reflection of the mindset of the owner or the founder of a company. Certain rituals or the regular activities or the ceremonies that enforce the culture also sometimes become an element for the people from the outside to judge that what kind of organization is this, whether I should be the part of this organization or I thank God I am not a part of this organization. Such kind of the view must have come in the mind of the viewers or the listeners of the people of a particular organization. Stories like narratives about the organization history or the significant event that embody its value. So if you have a very proud history of your organization, then it should be very explicitly mentioned on the websites or the other places, and people should talk good about your organization. So if it is not so, then you should create that legacy for the upcoming generation. You should not be disheartened that I don't have any strong history or the strong background to narrate to the people, to make them attracted towards my organization. If it is not so, never mind. Rather work on creating a history for the upcoming generation by having a clear organizational culture system. Then what are the factors influencing the structure and culture? The leadership style. If the leaders are corrupt, they will never have a core value system in the organization. Their approach toward the organization is always going to be biased, and they may create a favoritism environment. So the leadership style is going to be the large parameter to take a call that what kind of the hierarchy system will be there, what kind of culture will be there in the organization. Another thing is the company's growth. What are your aspirations? Are you very ambitious? You're looking for high growth of your organization, and if it is the case, if you're looking for high growth of your organization, for sure you will try to find out the mechanism which will help in increasing the potential of your company. And for this, you will have a clear-cut or defined structure. You will have a good culture in your organization so that you can attract highly skilled manpower in your company. Next is environment uncertainty. As everyone knows that environment is highly uncertain. The only certain thing about environment that it is uncertain. So you should have some scenarios, you should have some planning that how you are going to mitigate the risk of the uncertainty of the environment. So if you are so firm and clear that these are the different actions or the scenarios I will be taking into account if any risk is going to arise, then you need to really work on the robust structure and the culture of your organization. If your structure and the culture, which is acting as a backbone of the organization, is weak, you will never be able to face the contingencies. So in order to face the contingency, you need to work upon your backbone of the organization, that is the structure and the culture of the organization. And finally, the corporate strategies. As you all know, the corporate strategies are working on three key issues. What are those three key issues? One is the directional strategy. Second one is the portfolio strategy, and third one is the parenting strategy. So corporate strategy, which are set by the top management, they have to give the direction, they have to do the portfolio assessment, they have to do the parenting. Now what is direction? Direction could be given in the line of growth, it could be given for the stability, and can also be given for retrenchment. When growth, when conditions are favorable, and if conditions are very fluctuating, then they will go for stability. If such conditions are unfavorable, they will go for retrenchment. So why we are discussing these aspects of the corporate strategy? Because if you don't have a defined structure and culture, on what basis you will be giving a direction, right? There has to have some basis for giving a direction. Direction could be towards the expansion of a company, direction could be towards the stabilizing the different course of work, direction could be retrenchment. Retrenchment means layoff, retrenchment means to eliminate, close down certain units because things are not happening in the right direction. So you need to close down your unit, you need to close down your department, you need to find out your areas which are not working well. So you close down that department, you close down that unit, you close down your supply to a particular location. So it all come under the retrenchment because you are getting some negative feedback, you are not able to perform well despite of all your effort. But for all this you need to have a backbone. You don't have a structure, then how you will be able to do it? Take an example of a Kingfisher airline and debacle. In that case there was no corporate governance, there were no leadership structure. As a result, entire Kingfisher airline, despite of having a very good business model of serving the middle class people with a all luxury things, but couldn't survive well because there was no structure. He himself is acting as a CEO, he himself was acting as a leader. The Vijay Mallya was himself acting as a CEO and the leader. As a result, it fall down because there was no structure, there was no defined culture. So you need to have a proper structure and culture if you want to give the correct direction to your people. Then portfolio. Portfolio is the basket of all the different product lines your organization is offering. So you need to have a fair idea about which particular product line is leveraging profit, which one is incurring losses. So if the product line is incurring losses, what is the use of continuing with that product? You should take a decision of stopping that product line, or you should take a decision to find out how I can make it profitable, right? So portfolio analysis will tell you whether I am earning a profit or I am earning a losses. So profit are if profit is coming, then it is very good. If losses are there, then you need to take a call whether I should go for the parenting or should straight away close it. If there is a potential in a particular product line which is right now incurring the losses, but there is a potential that in near future it can result into profitable business, then put it for the parenting. And under parenting you will try to find out all misfit and the fit. Why this product not able to do well today, though it is having a potential. So you work on finding the cause and effect analysis and you try to figure out the various possible solutions to overcome this problem, and the product which is incurring losses today may become a profitable business in near future. So for the corporate strategy, all these things are the key decision areas, and again for taking these key decisions, the backbone is coming from structure and culture. Next, let's start with the strategic audit. Now, how auditing is going to be performed? Strategic audit is a very systematic examination of a company's strategy. It's how they are implementing their strategy, how effectively they are achieving the business goal. It helps firm identify its strength, weakness, opportunities and the threats, and ensure the alignment of external environment and the internal capabilities. Strategic audit act as a very important thing, which is a checklist. They are going to create a checklist. You can easily find out whether I am at par or I am below the average. Now, there are certain components of the strategic audit. One is the external environment analysis, second one is the internal environment analysis, the third one is your strategic performance evaluation, and the fourth one is comparative intelligence and the forecasting. So let's begin with the external environment analysis. So this is how you are going to create a chart of a strategic audit of external environment analysis. So there are certain factors of the external environment, as we had discussed in the previous lecture. There is a political environment, economical environment, socio-cultural environment, technological environment, and as a whole industry competition. So you try to see how these different factors are posing a difficulty upon my organization, right? So let's take an example of economic trend, the GDP growth, inflation, currency rate. These are the factors which are going to govern the economic environment of our country. So India economic recovery post COVID-19 has impacted lot of organization, right? So people have started getting lot of various avenues where they can earn hefty amount of money, or they have developed the multiple avenues where they can serve the customer to earn the profits. Another is a political legal environment where government policies and the tax reforms are there. The recent budget information on the 1st of Feb 2025 has given a lot of tax rebate to the people, which is going to increase the inflation. So these two things are quite interrelated and interconnected. The political environment, the different tax reform, different tax regimes, right? If they get strict, what is going to happen? Economic environment is going to get affected by it. So FDI policy impacting the retail sector. So if the government policies are very supportive, very conducive, every next time you will see the FDI is floating to your country, FPI is floating to your country. If the government policies are very rigid, very stringent, then there is a possibility that people will stop disinvesting in a country, not only from the foreign sector but also from the India market. Social and cultural trend is another aspect. So you are trying to do the consumer preference and demographic study. So you will get to know about the rising demand for the electric vehicles, and based on that understanding, Tata Motors started coming up with EV, Tesla started coming up with EV, and Tesla even started thinking of the renewable energies. Technological development like digital transformation and automation. So UPI, digital payment revolution, has brought lot of transparency in the ecosystem, which is bringing a confidence among the investors also, because most of the time people used to hide their earnings. Now with the help of UPI and digital payment, the transparency is taking a place, and the chances and possibility of corruption is going down. Industry competition, the market rivals and entry barriers like Ola and Uber competition is also creating a buzz, and people are recognizing and realizing that with the advancement in technology, it's not going to pave the way for one company. Whomsoever is adapting themselves with the advancement of technology is going to get the advantage of it. So with the understanding of this external environment, you are having a checklist of the various factors which can affect the growth of your organization. It is leading to the list of opportunities and the threats. Negative aspects are the threats. So if anything out of them, the political pestle environment, anything which is coming out is a positive, then it is your opportunity. If anything coming out of this is negative for you, then it is your threat, and you have to take the corrective course of action to overcome the threats. Next is your internal environment analysis. For analyzing the internal environment, you have to assess and do the assessment of your resources, structure and culture. And for resource analysis, you use the VRIO model, and for the structure analysis, the hierarchy of the organization is taken into consideration, and for this, vision and mission of the organization is taken into consideration. As far as the tool for external environment analysis is concerned, the PESTEL model, PESTEL tool is used for doing the analysis for the external environment, and for internal environment analysis, tool which is used is VRIO model, which is given by the Barney. So here we try to analyze and examine the different resources of a company, like financial performance, Reliance Jio profitability is coming from the data services, human resource like Infosys employee training and retention program, the talent acquisition and the workforce, see operation and supply chain like DMart, direct sourcing for the cost efficiency, right? In order to reduce the cost, or in order to gain the comparative edge in the market or increase the profit margin, what DMart is doing, they are directly buying it from the manufacturer instead of buying from the intermediaries, and this is how they able to come up with a product which is very low as compared to any other offerers in the market. Technology and innovation like TCS focus on AI driven software solution, brand and market positioning like Tata reputation for the trust and the quality. So all these aspects are becoming the plus point, that means the strength of the organization, and the negative aspects are becoming the weakness of the organization. So the moment you have the list of strength and weakness, accordingly you can create a cause and effect analysis, and you can find out whether these weaknesses are going to be very devastating for me, or I can really work well without even working on those weaknesses. I can ignore these weaknesses and can focus on my strength. So you can take a call after understanding the cause and effect analysis of the strength and weaknesses. Next is your strategic performance evaluation. Under this, you try to find out that current strategy is working effectively or not. For this, what you are doing, you are clubbing the two things together. You are clubbing the strength weakness portion, opportunities and threats. So you are clubbing these two aspects, external environment analysis aspect, internal environment aspects, into this strategic performance evaluation. That means here you are trying to find out the results based on the tool which is known as SWOT analysis. You have clubbed the two things together, internal environment analysis as well as the external. So criteria for this is vision mission alignment. So is the company following its core purpose? If answer is yes, that means you are taking the advantage, you are taking a lead in the market. Competitive advantage, does the strategy create a unique position? If answer is yes, that means you are a leader in the market. Financial health, are revenues and profits growing? If answer is yes, again you are taking a lead. Operational efficiency, is business process is optimized? That means the per unit cost of production is going down. That means unnecessary steps which you used to take place in order to do the production, like suppose for doing a production 8 steps were involved earlier, now you have reduced it to 5. That means optimization of the process of production is taking place. If answer is yes, again you are working on more on your strength. Customer satisfaction, a customer loyal and engaged, that means this is a great opportunity for you and it is going to become a strength for your organization, and the answer is going to be very in favor of your organization. So this is how you try to do the performance analysis of your strategy, whether my strategies are working well or not. Whatever the efforts I am putting up in order to come up with the better strategy for my organization, is it actually performing well in the market or not? Or there are some executional issues, or there are certain gaps. So with this understanding of the different criteria and the key questions, you can quickly checklist out that these things are working well for me and these points are not working well for my organization. Now after this, finally you are ready with what? Competitive intelligence and the forecasting. You can now forecast based on your strategic performance evaluation data. You can forecast that how well you can survive in the market, how many years you can sustain in the market, because after all it's a matter of survival. So competitive intelligence involves gathering market and competitor data to anticipate the trade and strategic moves, that what your competitors are doing, how they will be taking a different course of action in near future, how market trends are going to get changed. All these things you have to anticipate, forecast in advance. If you are not doing so, you will perish. If you do so, then there is a possibility that you can survive, and that's the reason why it is known as a competitive intelligence and forecasting. So the aspects for this competitive benchmarking, so here you are going to benchmark your competitor. You have to see, if I am a Flipkart, my competitor is Amazon, so Amazon standards are going to be the benchmark one. So you are going to analyze the complete market share of the Amazon. You have to see how they could manage to provide the flawless services to their customer as compared to the Flipkart. I have to find out where I am lagging behind, how I should work on, what are my gray areas, how I can overcome those gray areas, so that I can become a company like that of Amazon. Then trend analysis, you try to find out the growth of digital banking and fintech in India, so that you can make use of those advancement of technology in order to provide the better services to your customer. And even you have to do the scenario planning to mitigate the risk, like impact of 5G technology on telecom sector. So such kind of analysis is really going to pave your way to mitigate the risk. Such kind of analysis will help you to find out the probable opportunities which you could not sense out right now, but after doing the forecasting, but after doing the assessment of the market, you can sense out that these things can happen and I should be ready well in advance to counter or attack those situations which may arise in near future. And for doing this, we had discussed in our previous lecture about the 5 forces of Porter's model, where we try to understand how a particular company can repel those forces which are coming from all the 4 different directions. In our previous lecture, we talk about that under the 5 forces of Porter's model, the customer bargaining power was handled by having an effective R&D system, right? Supplier bargaining power was reduced by providing the timely order, good quantity and payments to them, threat of new entrant by enjoying economy of scale, threat of substitute by acquiring them. So these different repulsion strategies could be adopted by a company, but they could not adopt those strategies until and unless they have gone deep into the market. They have gone deeper and deeper in understanding the psychology of the different mindset of the people, be it a customer or the supplier psychology or the psychology of a competitors or the rival or the psychology of a substitute companies. So you have to go deeper and deeper into the market, then only you will be in position to take a corrective course of action. Otherwise the competitors are going to lead over you, they are going to take an edge over you, and you may not be able to enjoy the comparative advantage which ideally you should do. Then next, finally, after understanding all external environment checklist, internal environment checklist, strategic performance evaluation checklist and competition intelligence checklist, you are ready with the strategic audit checklist. That means you are going to have a set of few questions to be asked in order to know whether your mission is aligned or not, business model is aligned or not, comparative position is aligned or not, customer and market trends are taken into account before coming up with the product in the market, your financial health is good or not, operational efficiency, that means are you trying to work on finding out the optimum way of doing the production, are you trying to find out the optimum utilization of the resources or other energies which you are using in the organization, are you using the advanced technology to do the production, or are you ready to face the uncertainty? If the answer is no, then your company is struggling really very hard. If answer is yes, then that means you are well acquainted with the required information and you can take the corrective course of action if as and when needed. Then let's take an example of a strategic audit of a Tata Motors for bringing the better understanding to each one of you, that if the vision mission is considered under the strategic factor, then we need to see whether the Tata Motor performance is aligned with the vision mission or not. So they are aligning their vision mission with sustainability and innovation. So recently, as you have seen, Tata Motor has come up with EVs and they are working on coming up with better EV technology. So that means they are focusing on their vision mission. Comparative position, strong EV in the market. Tata Nexon EV is creating a very comparative position in the market and providing the better services to their customer. Market trend, growing demand for the green vehicles is there. So keeping that market trend in mind, the company has set their vision mission, which is for sustainability and innovation. As a result, they come up with this product, which is known as Tata Nexon. Financial health, stable revenue with the growing EV sale. Apart from that, the Tata Motors is already having a well-established product with them, which actually leveraging lot of profits for them, and this particular leveraging cash cow products of Tata Motor helped the company to come up with this new product in the EV sector. Though EV sale is growing, but it is not leveraging profit as much it was expected. Operational efficiency, the cost effective manufacturing in India, this is leading to gain more profit, but not now, but in the near future. Innovation in R&D, investment in electric and autonomous car, risk management, adapting to the global supply chain challenges, all these factors are checked by the Tata Motors company, and based on that, it is taking a corrective course of action, and that's the reason why Tata Motors successfully leverage innovation and cost leadership. Now let's quickly review what different topics we had discussed today. In our today's lecture, we try to find out that how you are going to analyze the environment. What are the parameters which are going to be taken into account before taking a final call on strength and weakness of your company. Like for this, our resource-based view, we try to find out the VRIO model and value chain analysis model is used to get the understanding whether my resources are worth enough to invest in or not. If the value chain analysis model and the VRIO model results are in negative, that means resources are not worthy to invest in. Rather, it should be put on a scrap and you should look for some other investment or some other area to work on. So with the help of resource based view, you have the clarity that resources that you are holding, the kind of structure of your organization, the kind of culture you are having in the organization, is it amicable, is it conducive or not, is it going to really pave your way to take for the challenges or to minimize the risk if any uncertain environment is going to pose any difficulty upon your organization. If answer is yes, that means these resources should be continued with. You should continue with these resources. In the same chapter, we discuss about the business model. We try to define the different market positions. We try to make you understand that if a particular organization is not able to leverage a profit, then still there is a possibility to find out how you can leverage profit. You have to start doing the fit and misfit analysis of those product line which are not leveraging profit. But for this, you need to have a defined structure and culture. Until unless you have a proper backbone of a company, you won't be able to do the proper portfolio analysis of a company. If portfolio analysis could not be performed, how you can perform the parenting of a company? Then comes the very important aspect, that is your organization structure and culture, which impacts the performance of the organization as a whole, and it leads to the better understanding, and it creates a better understanding among the worker, and it creates a strong image and pride among the people who are working in the organization. If a worker feel a pride while being associated with your organization, that means the culture of this organization is very conducive, is very amicable, and people feel like being a part of it. People recommend your company to join. But for creating such culture, you need to have a strong shared values, you need to have a robust belief system, you need to have a system where the transparency is maintained by and large, and it is well explained and curated to the people working in the organization. Strategic audit ensure the continuous improvement, as we have seen in our previous slide, that these are the different steps to be taken by the organization in order to do the strategic auditing. Very first, it starts with the external environment analysis, where they try to find out the external environment is posing the opportunities or its threats. If it is posing the opportunities, then it is a favorable thing. If it is posing the threat, that means it is negative. So you have to find out the different aspects which can lead to the opportunities and the threats. Further, it move on to the internal environment analysis, where you list out the strengths and weaknesses. All togetherly, it is going to form a SWOT matrix, which can be seen in the case of the strategic performance evaluation. And then finally, you come up with the step of comparative analysis and forecasting, because you need to foresee the future also and the upcoming trends, which will pave your way to gain the comparative position in the market. And based on all those 4 different steps, your strategic auditing checklist is ready, and we try to understand how auditing is taking place with the help of the Tata Motor example also. So dear learners, I am sure with this you have understood that how important is to analyze the internal environment of the organization and how strategic auditing take place. I am sure with the example of Tata Motors and the other example, you are clear with the concept. For further reading, you can refer to this book. Thank you.